You're welcome to the Sanity and Success Podcast, the show that restructures how we approach life, work, and balance. It is time we erase unrealistic expectations that keep powerhouses like you playing small. I'm your girl, Emily Dela Cruz, and together we'll find and preserve your peace while you stack this paper and live on purpose. Let's get it popping. Welcome back to another episode. This is the first episode of 2022, and I cannot wait to share with you all of the revelations and everything that I've learned in the last couple of weeks. It's been a while since I recorded an episode. I batch recorded some episodes a couple of weeks ago while I was in Atlanta, and then I started, traveling and moving around for the holiday season. So this is my first episode of 2022, and I have a lot to share. In this episode, we're going to be talking about surrendering. I'm calling it a lesson on surrender because I was inspired by the book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. In the book, he talks all about how surrendering and really just going with the flow of life helped him to become the successful entrepreneur and family man that he is. So I'm going to share with you just a couple of different things that I want you guys to consider and think about in this new year, in this new season. I'm sure that you all have seen all of the posts on social media talking about ease, talking about outsourcing, talking about relaxation and rejuvenation. And I really think that 2022, for me at least, is going to be a year of restoration. 2020 and 2021 were very, very difficult for me. A lot happened that was amazing, but a lot also happened that was difficult to navigate. So I really think that God is just going to restore a lot of what I feel might have been taken from me or might have been lost in the last couple of years. I hope that that is the case for you and that this episode really, really resonates, because I think that out here we have this hustling mentality as entrepreneurs, as high achieving women, successful employees. We're killing it in corporate America, climbing the corporate ladder, growing 6, 7, 8-figure businesses. But there are a lot of things that come to mind when we have to make decisions, when we have to design what we want our lives to look like. Oftentimes when we have to make those decisions, or when we're at the crossroads of like a new year, we tend to start to get a little bit confused, start to feel a bit overwhelmed with all the planning and all the strategizing and all the mapping. So I just wanted to give you guys some things to consider as you embark on this new year. For me, I'm actually recording this episode from my friend's closet. Shout out to Carolina from Miss Rizo Salon. She is a salon owner in the Dominican Republic, and she also has a curly hair salon franchise in New York City and Washington Heights. So shout out to Carolina for hosting me and my friend Ada. Letting me borrow her closet and all her stuff to shoot this episode. I'm still in the Dominican Republic, where I've been literally all of 2022 so far. If you know me, you know that I am type A. You know that I'm all about organization and spreadsheets and plans and making sure things are perfect and being a little bit controlling, as my therapist likes to say. So I came to the Dominican Republic on a workcation, if you will. I was planning to look at some properties to invest in, to get another Airbnb. I have 2 properties in the United States right now, one in Atlanta and one in Dallas. I really wanted to expand my portfolio internationally and be able to have a place that I could not only enjoy as a tourist when I'm on vacation, but also to be able to generate some income from an Airbnb. When I came, I didn't take time off work. I came with my laptop and the iPad and the camera and like literally all the tools, because I just felt like, okay, I'm going to do what I do in Dallas. I'm going to work, and then in the evenings and on the weekends, then, I'll explore my home country and, see family, see friends, do all the things. And it did not pan out that way. So I got here, my computer has been acting a whole fool. The Wi-Fi is very finicky, and it decides to connect when it wants to connect, which has been quite difficult for work. I spent a lot of the first 2 weeks here just like trying to go to co-working spaces. I was at the rental car place using their Wi-Fi. I was at restaurants trying to use Wi-Fi. At the mall, literally, I was trying to find a strong Wi-Fi connection anywhere possible, and it was just not working out for your girl. Then I was really anxious, because my work is starting to pile up. I need to get these deliverables done. I need to get these deadlines together. So not only was I constantly searching for Wi-Fi, I was also feeling a sense of anxiousness of not having Wi-Fi and not being online and not being able to complete my work. Then baby girl tested positive for the vid. A couple of days in, my cousin, who actually drove me to the airport when I was home in New York City for the holidays, tested positive for COVID. Luckily, I didn't have any terrible symptoms. I just had a stuffy nose, which luckily I ended up getting tested because I just chucked the stuffy nose up to me sleeping under the AC and, the change in weather. And I ended up testing positive for COVID. I fell off for a couple of days, but thank God I didn't have terrible, terrible symptoms and it didn't knock me out. But it was just something to battle through. So I ended up having to quarantine a couple of days here and then also, again, try to figure out the whole Wi-Fi situation. So that was a pain in the ass. What I realized was, as I was feeling anxious and feeling stressed about work and everything that was going on, God was really blessing your girl, okay? God really just came through in this season for me. You guys know that I'm a big believer in the Lord, but if that's not your source, that's totally fine. You can replace God with source, universe, angel, spirit, whatever you want to call him, it, her. But I just know that there's a higher power that's constantly looking out. So my birthday is in December. A couple of days before my birthday, I decided to hop off of social media through the end of the year just to make sure that I was clear, that I wasn't distracted by what was going on social media, that I wasn't, looking at people's coordinated pajama pictures or engagements or, baby announcements and all of the things that happen during the holidays, and getting distracted or starting to feel lonely or starting to feel less than. Because let's be honest, we scroll on social media and we see people's highlight reels and we start to wonder if our life is as great as we think it is. And we sometimes start to yearn for and miss some of the things that we see other people having. So because you guys know that I have struggled with depression and, mental health is really, really important to me, I just know what my triggers are. I know what tends to happen during certain seasons, and I was not finna play those shenanigans. So I got off social to just regroup, relax, and just reset for the new year. And while I was off social media, relaxing, resting, doing my thing, I actually ended up booking 2 clients, 2 7-figure clients actually, and I'm super, 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 super excited to work with them. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. One of them is going to be launching a brand from scratch, which is going to be focused on e-commerce. And then I have another couple who are coaches in the real estate industry, and we're trying to scale them to the multiple 7-figure mark. I'm just super excited that they found me and that they decided to work with me. As I was anxious about what was going on in my 9-to-5, I was so just taken aback by the overflow and the abundance that was happening when I wasn't doing anything, right? It's like in my day-to-day life, I was stressed and overwhelmed and trying to figure out how to work. And here on the flip side, we have a business that's flourishing without a whole bunch of effort. I'm lucky enough to run my business, which is technically, could be considered a side hustle, with a very lean team. So it's me and my assistant, Jem. So shout out to Jem. And, we kind of hold down the fort there. I have a contractor that helps out with social media management and posting, but for the most part, my funnels kind of do the work. People apply, Gem sends out the acceptances if their application is accepted, and then they kind of go through a very automated kind of process to learn more about how to work with us and then end up enrolling. So while I'm traveling, I'm getting notifications that clients are booked and things are happening for me. Even in my season of scarcity and even in my season of me feeling like, oh my God, there's not enough Wi-Fi, there's not enough time, there's not enough, God came through to remind me that there's always more than enough. Right? So that was super amazing. That was one of the many rainbows that I saw literally and figuratively on this trip. If you haven't checked out my Instagram, go ahead and follow me over at emilydelacruz.com. On there, you will see some amazing pictures of, my time in the Dominican Republic, some beautiful, beautiful rainbows that I came across, beautiful beach views, and what I was up to out here the first half of January. And then things got crazier. So I'm over here stressed out trying to find Wi-Fi. Then, I'm booking clients and I'm like, wow, God is amazing. And then boom, another situation. So if that wasn't enough, then comes my passport situation. So while I was here for the weekend, me and my friend Ada, we went up to a part of the country called Las Terrenas. And it's a beach town in the mountains, and it just is such a beautiful, beautiful mix of nature where you get like the beach, but you also get that very tropical, rainforesty, mountainous type of views. While we were there, had an amazing time, and boom, I lost my passport. And I didn't necessarily lose it. I was packing, and it seems that my passport had fallen out of my purse or one of my bags, and it fell inside of the Airbnb, and I didn't realize it until after we got home, which was 2.5 hours away from Las Terrenas. So when we got back to the capital, and we're literally packing, getting ready to get on the plane to go back to America, I discovered that my passport is nowhere to be found. For me, it was super duper frustrating, and I was very, very anxious because I'm extra responsible when it comes to traveling and packing. I'm the type of person that, will make sure that my bag is packed the day before. I, like to arrive at the airport early. I do all the things. The morning before we left the Airbnb, I had gotten up super early, like at 8 a.m., which is super early for me, okay? My preference is to be up at 10. But I got up early, I washed clothes, I folded clothes, I packed my suitcase, I had my suitcase next to the bag, ready to go. Like, I was doing all of the things. I don't really like to operate in chaos. And when I realized that my passport was missing, I was even more frustrated because I'm like, wow, I did everything, right? While Ada got up that morning and like went to the beach and, soaked up her last little bit of sun, I was trying to be the responsible Emily, right? I was trying to make sure that everything was packed and everything was perfect and everything was good to go. Instead of enjoying, my last couple of hours there, I was trying so hard to make sure that everything was perfect. Then I was trying to make sure that everything was good and be so responsible or whatever, that I ended up losing my passport anyway. And it really just showed me that we can try our best to be extra prepared, but that doesn't mean that everything's always going to be perfect and that everything's always going to work out. So it's best for you to do what feels good to you, because shit is always going to hit the fan. Shit is always going to happen. And it's better if things get crazy and you can say that you enjoyed your time versus things still going left and you don't even have any joy to show for it. So that's to kind of give you a little bit of context as to what I was feeling and what I was experiencing when I stumbled across the Surrender Experiment. And the Surrender Experiment, again, is a book by Michael Singer. And in the book, he talks about the importance of surrendering. The book was recommended to me by one of my mentors, Michelle Giovanni. She is amazing. I'll make sure to link her Instagram down in the show notes. Michelle is all about like just letting things be, making sure that things are the way that God, spirit, source, universe, however you want to call it, it's divinely organized and ordained for you, not how we try to force it to be. And for somebody who is very controlling and wants to plan and strategize and do all of the things to make sure that things are perfect, you can see how surrendering is the exact opposite of who I am. But fun enough, Ala was reading that book, so I started to dive deeper into surrendering and just started to look at my situation a little bit differently. And instead of seeing the situation as I'm the victim here, I was like, well, what is this trying to teach me? How is this happening for me? What am I getting out of this situation? So yeah, my passport was lost, but I'm getting a couple of extra days to actually rest and relax since I had been running the first couple of weeks here, looking at Airbnbs, looking at rental properties, running errands, going here, going there. I really didn't get enough time, I think, to enjoy and just rest and go into the new year in a very relaxed state of mind. I think I started the new year very much in a lot of hustle. So that was a good thing. My passport ended up getting found, right? So I didn't have to like go through all the struggle of going to the embassy and doing all the things. I was able to contact the owner of the Airbnb, get it couriered. Then I was able to just go to an office here in the Dominican Republic and just pick it up. And then I got my COVID test to make sure that I'm good to go for my flight and all of those things. So it all ended up working out in my favor. I actually only ended up having to pay an $80 difference to change my flight for 4 days. So that was also a super duper blessing for me. And the more and more that I started to think about the idea of surrendering and the idea of what if this is happening for me, not to me, I wanted to dive deeper into like what surrendering meant and share with you guys some things that you can apply in your own life. Surrendering is to stop resisting to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. Surrender is not resisting to an enemy or an opponent and to submit to their authority. Wow. I always looked at surrender in a negative kind of, especially like we think of war, like you're waving the white flag, you kind of think of it as like a giving up, but really surrendering is all about letting go and submitting to another's authority. In this case, I decided to submit to the authority that God has over my life. There's a reason all of these things are happening to me. There is a reason why I didn't get on the plane on Saturday. There's a reason why I left my passport. There's a reason why I was here for an extra couple of days. There is a reason. And the more and more that I try to fight what's already happening for me, and the more that I start to feel anxious or feel stressed out about the situation, the less productive that I actually become. The more that I get stuck in my head, the more that I start to feel bad, the more that I start to get nervous and anxious and overwhelmed and worked up. And if you know anything about manifestation, or if you believe in manifestation or the law of attraction and all of those things, that's a terrible place to be. It's very hard to manifest. It's very hard to have what God has called you to be. If you know anything about manifestation, that is a terrible place to be. It's really hard for you to reap all of the abundance, to have everything that God has for you, to attract and hold and experience all of life's goodness. If you're constantly in a state of lack, if you're constantly in a state of chaos, you will never feel peace if you're constantly in a chaotic internal environment, period. And because I knew this, and because I understood this, I started to study surrender a little bit deeper. And I started to understand that me letting go and going with the flow isn't about me being disorganized or me being out of control, but it's really about letting the person who really is in control, or I should say the being who really is in control, the person who knows what I'm here for, the entity that knows my calling, that knows my purpose better than I ever could. The manual was written by this higher power. So who am I to keep trying to say how things are going to go or figure out how things are supposed to work when it's already been written for me? And I'm not trying to get too churchy on y'all, but just think about, what if the plan that you have is mediocre in comparison to what you're really supposed to get? What if you're betting on $100,000 or a $500,000 or $1 million business, but God has a $1 billion business inside of you, right? What if you're thinking about saving a job or saving a relationship or saving a situation that really you have outgrown or has expired, and in you trying to save that situation, you are just delaying the level up, right? You're just delaying the improvement of what's actually to come for you. You're delaying the next level of your life, the next level of your relationship, the next level of your business, because you're so focused on trying to save and maintain the status quo that you have right now. So I'm in a season where I'm not trying to constantly direct my life anymore, but instead just follow a series of perfectly fortunate events. If you're constantly in a state of burnout and overwhelm and you're trying to calculate and plan and strategize all of the little moves in your life, every single decision comes with a very heavy weight. I encourage you to just see where it goes. Just see how it would feel if you focused on what felt good and what felt easy instead of trying to force something to happen to you. And I'll give you an example. When I wanted to purchase a house, I literally was swimming upstream. I was constantly in a state of resistance, and I didn't realize that until I purchased my second home, and the process was completely different. So when I bought my first house in Atlanta, nothing was panning out for me. I had been an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur for 2 years, so I had no W income. I had written off like literally everything in my business because I was not trying to pay taxes, and I wanted to buy a home. When I was trying to get pre-approved for the loan, the mortgage officer was like, "You're not showing enough income. Like, your taxes are great. Like, even though your business grossed over 6 figures, what you actually profited is not enough for you to qualify for the kind of home that you want." So I was super, super discouraged. And I was like, I'm going to make it work anyway. I'm going to do what I got to do. And I ended up getting 2 jobs. I started working at the leasing office in my apartment complex, and I started cleaning hotel rooms on the weekends. And it was the most exhausting time of my life. I was looking a mother effing mess, okay? I was wearing wigs. The part on the wig, the synthetic hair on the wig, I had no business. I had no business wearing wigs, okay? If you follow me on IG, you know how my hair looks. But I was just so busy and so exhausted and didn't have any days off that I couldn't get my hair done. I hate wearing my hair natural. Like, it's a headache. Wash day, I ain't got time for wash day. So I was wearing wigs, looking a mess. I was wearing like press-on nails because in housekeeping, like cleaning the bathroom, constantly, changing sheets, things like that, having nails just didn't make no sense. They would end up chipped and look a mess within the week. So I just was trying to make everything work, trying to figure it all out as I was going along. Eventually, after a couple of weeks of doing that and having like W-2 income, I also redid my taxes for 2018 and 2019. Was it 2018? Either 2018 and 2019 or 2017 and 2018. I don't remember. But either way, I redid 2 years of tax returns. Shout to my accountant, Jarrell Thompson. You can follow him on Instagram at The Tax Breaker, and we'll make sure to also link his information down below. But yeah, Jarrell like saw me ranting one day on Instagram and reached out and was like, "Hey, I can help you. I'm an accountant, but I'm also a realtor, so I really understand like what you're trying to do." And obviously he's also an entrepreneur because he has his own tax firm. So he just really understood the nuances of everything of being an entrepreneur, trying to buy a house, and then understanding the tax situation, that I was like, I will pay you any amount of money, just fix this. So he redid my taxes so that I could show more income. And then also, taking into consideration the W-2s, I reapplied. So when I reapplied, the loan officer approved me for some ridiculous amount of house, like $130,000. I'm like, what am I going to do with this, Lord? I mean, really? $130K in Atlanta? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. So I ended up having to ask my mom to co-sign on the loan in order for me to be able to get approved for more house. I ended up getting a home, multifamily, so it was a 4-bedroom situation up top and then a 1-bedroom apartment downstairs with a huge yard, a ton of land. It was like perfect. I remember going to the house, praying over it, and just like really making sure that it was going to come to pass for me. Came to pass. I move in immediately, like the week of me moving in, the pipe burst in the basement. So I had rented the upstairs. I was living downstairs in the 1-bedroom. The water pipe from the street burst and it was flooding my basement with water, my newly renovated basement. I ended up having to, get a water mitigation team. I had to redo all of the flooring. I had to some of the drywall. I had to pay for a water mitigation team to come out and obviously like clean up all the mess before I could even, put my home back together. I had to get a mold inspection. I did all of that. I had to get the pipe fixed. I did all of that only to find out that yet another pipe was broken. And I'm going to save you the story because I will be here literally for 3 weeks. But moral of the story is that in the basement, even though the house had been renovated, I don't know if it just wasn't built properly, the inspector missed some things, but there were multiple little leaks that were ruining my house. Like I had 2 leaks in the ceiling, one in the bathroom, the pipe that burst come from the street. And I should have known that owning that house wasn't going to be easy because of the process that was required for me to get it. I should have known that having to redo my taxes, clean hotel rooms, work for $12 an hour at the leasing office, try to run my business, get my mom to co-sign. I should have known that all of that resistance, all of that I was doing was going to result in me not being able to enjoy the fruits of all of that hard-ass labor. When I moved to Texas, it was a completely different story. And every time people ask me, like, why did you move to Texas? I can literally only say God wanted me there. Because I visited Texas, I visited Dallas in May for Memorial Day weekend. I was driving around with my friend Domino, and we went to visit his mom, who lives in Oak Cliff, which is a up-and-coming area in Dallas. It's like the gentrified area of Dallas now. And I started asking him just about, prices of homes and, the market and things like that. And once I found out what they were selling houses for in Texas, I was like, I have to move. Like, I just need to come here. I don't really have a lot of friends in Dallas. I know a couple people from Syracuse that I had graduated with, but I didn't really have a super duper strong network. But I knew a couple of people and I knew that I could get by. That same weekend, I reached out to Amber, my realtor. We'll also link her down below in the show notes. Dorsey sells DFW. So I reached out to Amber Dorsey. I did a consultation with her. I told her what I was looking for. She connected me to a lender. More of the story is I was pre-approved within like 2 weeks. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And after I got pre-approved, I had put in an offer on my house on Juneteenth. And June 19th of 2020, if you know anything, you know that we were in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a huge like racial crisis / awakening. We were in the middle of like all of George Floyd. We were in the middle of all the protests. Like there was just a lot going on for Juneteenth. And it really just meant a lot that as a woman of color, I could put in an offer on a house without needing a man, without having to be white, and without having to be rich. And I always say that God really just wanted me to be in Texas because the whole process was so seamless, so easy. I viewed a couple of houses via FaceTime. After I saw the houses via FaceTime, we put in the offer, ended up getting accepted. It wasn't any of that back and forth, competing offers, nothing. It was like the house was just like sitting there waiting for me. It was new construction, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in an up-and-coming neighborhood in South Dallas. And when I tell you the peace that I've been able to feel in Dallas, the joy that I've been able to feel in Dallas, the home buying process mirrors exactly what my life is like in Dallas. I was able to fall in love again in Dallas. I was able to read my business again in Dallas. I was able to make new friends. Baby girl, the weather. I don't have to wear a North Face. If you're from New York, you already know the North Face and the Timbs, they have not come out in Dallas, okay? It's been a blessing. It's been an amazing, amazing experience. And the reason why I share that is because it's the best example that I can think of. What happens when you're in perfect alignment, when you're going with the flow, and when you're just following a series of perfect, fortunate events versus when you are constantly in resistance, constantly swimming upstream, and constantly trying to force your will to be done instead of letting God's will be done. Another example is with my business, right? Getting off of social media, not posting, not promoting, not going live, not sending out emails, literally not doing anything. And clients are calling me ready to book, right? Clients are signing up. I don't have to do any big old launch or stress myself out, but my ideal clients, the clients that are assigned to me, are finding me, are booking, and are paying me in full. a blessing, a blessing. And then now this commercial lease space. So I have been looking for a commercial lease space. I will tell you guys what it is when it happens. Hopefully my next podcast episode, or maybe in 2 more weeks, I'll be able to share all the details on that. But I've been looking for a commercial space for years, since 2018. I tried to make the commercial space work when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. It didn't pan out. Shortly after, I ended up moving to Atlanta, so I know exactly why it didn't pan out. I had tried looking in Atlanta, tried to like sublease a couple of places, didn't pan out. When I first moved to Dallas at the top of 2021 in January, I looked at a couple of places again, didn't pan out. And then finally in December of 2021, I started the search again, and it worked out perfectly. I found a place that was ready to go. It didn't need any renovations. It came with parking, which was super important for me. The rent was affordable, something that I could do, and it was a loft space. So it allowed me to have the 2 separate spaces for the 2 concepts that I really wanted to bring to life. And now I understand why it never worked out for me before, why all of the other places that I looked at never worked, weren't within my budget, didn't have parking, were in random parts of town. Like, this space is perfect for me and for what I want to do and for the things that I want to bring to life. And had it worked out for me in the past, I think I would have quickly learned that the previous spaces weren't going to be ideal. So I'm just so glad. When people say like it was worth the wait, it was worth the wait, okay? So as I start to look at my life, all of the things that I surrendered to, that I just let kind of fall into my lap, that I let work out in my favor and work out for my good, ended up being the exact blessing that I needed in that season, the exact thing that I was looking for. And it wasn't chaotic. Every single time that I try to force myself into a situation, force myself into a job, force myself onto a client, force myself into a house, it never works out, baby girl. It never works out, okay? I don't want to be places that I have to beg to be at. I don't want to be places that I have to fight tooth and nail to be in. But as women, especially as women of color, we're taught that it's all about hard work, and it's all about hustling, and it's all about us working twice as hard to get half as far as the white person, or working, if you're a woman, right, working twice as hard to get half as far as a man, working twice as hard to get half as far as whoever. I'm not subscribing to that narrative anymore. I really believe that the things that are for me will come to me in the most divine way. Period. I truly believe that life can be challenging, but it shouldn't feel impossible. Something challenging you, it means that it is testing your abilities. It's not going to be easy. It's going to require you to do a little bit of work, but it's not going to feel impossible. It's not going to feel like it is not going to come to pass. And when we are constantly wondering why things aren't working out for us, when we're constantly wondering why things feel impossible, it might be, I truly believe that now, that it might be that it's just not for you. Baby girl, if it's not working out and you've been at it for 10 years, maybe there's something bigger for you on the other side. My first 3 business models did not pan out for me. I tried to be a low ticket coach, did not pan out for me. I tried to do a sales funnel agency. I would say it worked well for 2 years, but then eventually I needed to pivot, and God forced me to move to something else. I was able to go work for the Lit Bar. I loved my time at TLB. It was an amazing experience. I got to work with brilliant people, the CEO, Melissa Butler. I got to learn. I got to go to amazing events and trade shows. And I mean, if I would have stayed in my business, I would have missed a lot of what I learned at TLB. And that was also a moment that it was super easy. Melissa and I had known each other for a couple of years. We had stayed connected on social media. She obviously knew of my work. And, we had a couple of phone calls, and it was like, come work for me. I didn't need to do nothing crazy. I didn't need to go through 600 interviews, do a test project, none of that. It was one of those things where it's like, hey, I know you, I know your value, I know your work ethic, and I think we can do something great together. And we did. When that season of my life came to pass, I was able to move on to another role. And it's just one of those things where, again, the more and more that you sit down and you think about what was easy versus what felt difficult, you'll start to see that some of your best moments and some of your best memories were truly from a place of ease and from a place of flow and just from a place of like divine alignment and circumstance, not so much resistance and difficulty. And I want to leave you with just 3 things that you can think about as you start to accept and go with the flow and surrender to the things that are happening for you and not to you. So, the first thing is to understand that most of us spend our lives trying to control our external environments instead of trying to hone in on our internal environments. We have so many preferences and our ego wants so many things, and we have all these voices inside our head telling us to work harder, to do more, to go faster, that we never really slow down and quiet our minds and quiet our thoughts to actually listen to what we want, to actually feel how we feel, and to figure out what feels good. What am I chasing via ego? What am I chasing for the sake of saying I accomplished something? What am I chasing for the sake of just checking off a box? What am I chasing for validation, for a feeling of worthiness? When I got my first house in Atlanta, I just wanted to check the box off. I just wanted to be able to say that I bought a house. I didn't care what kind of house. I didn't care where it was at. I didn't care how hard it was to get the mortgage. I just wanted to be able to check the box that said that I had a house, right? So the first thing is for you to really find peace for yourself, to slow down, to quiet your mind, to understand what you really want and why you really want those things, and then to see how serendipitous life is and see how life starts to kind of leave you little breadcrumbs to get you to your final destination. There's always going to be things, or, if you're a Christian, we can call it confirmation. If you're spiritual, you can call it signs. But there's always going to be something that is going to be guiding you to the next thing. And when you slow down and you quiet your mind and you become present enough to actually recognize it, it's very easy for you to get into that flow and get into that momentum, because you're constantly putting one foot in front of the other. You may not have all of the answers, you may not know all of the steps, but you just know when to take the next step and when those steps are actually ordered in your favor. The next thing I want you to consider is how you can live in the present moment. So live moment to moment and day to day instead of constantly living in the future or living in the past. I make this mistake all of the time where I let all of my thoughts and anxieties of the future and shame and disappointment of the past suffocate me in the present. So I'm constantly thinking about how I want to be a multimillionaire and how I want to retire and how I want to do this and how I want to do that. That all of those thoughts of the future overwhelm me to the point that I get paralyzed in the present. They overwhelm me to the point that I don't even have any energy to do anything, to exert any effort, to put forth any action in the present, because I'm so worried about what if I don't accomplish this thing in the future. And then I couple that with me walking down memory lane every single day and thinking about all of the things that didn't work and how hard everything was and what it took for me to get here, that I also don't have any time or energy to focus on the present because I'm too busy replaying the past and trying to control and manipulate and strategize so that I don't make the same mistakes in the present. So by me trying to control the present by avoiding the past and constantly thinking about the future, I don't actually get to participate in it. I don't actually get to enjoy it. I don't actually get to be present because I'm constantly living in another reality. I'm constantly living in another state of time. The only time that we have, the only time that we can live is the present. And you rob yourself of that opportunity when you choose to live in the future or the past. And the last thing I want you to do in terms of surrender is stop trying to constantly protect yourself and instead consider saying yes. And I know you're probably like, girl, what are you talking about? I'm always going to have to protect myself. I'm always going to have to put me first. I'm always going to have to calm down, sis, put the armor down, get the guards up off the walls, okay, of the castle. You're going to be all right. But what I realize is when we are constantly in a state of chaos and when we're constantly in a state of protecting ourselves, we end up shutting things, people, and opportunities that are assigned to us, that are aligned for us, that are those little breadcrumbs and those little signs and those little opportunities that we're looking for. We tend to shut them out and we don't get to actually leverage them because we're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I encourage you to just say yes more. If you are looking for a book that you can read, The Year of Yes is a great one. And you don't need to read the book to understand the concept of basically say yes. Say yes more, right? When I was living in Atlanta, I was there for 5 years, but one of the years it was definitely my year of yes. Saying yes to people who wanted to pick my brain, even though I knew that they were going to quote unquote use me. I still rather go and meet somebody and see what I can get out of the interaction than just say, well, I'm going to protect myself and I'm not going to let nobody pick my brain for free because, we got to charge for that. I'm sending an invoice for that. Because I got to connect with such amazing people. Some people were assholes and, they picked my brain. We had a coffee chat. F all y'all. Y'all know who y'all are if you're listening to my podcast. And we met one time and then we never spoke to each other again. But hopefully, they got what they needed out of the interaction. But I truly now understand the quote that's been floating around that says, leave empty, right? Or empty the clip if you follow the more ghetto versions. But, I really believe that I've been filled with knowledge, with experiences, with a personality, with a perspective that can bless somebody else. So it is my job to constantly empty myself out. Not empty myself to be drained, but empty myself in the sense of that I'm constantly pouring into others because that I know that I'm constantly going to also get refilled. And once I started saying yes, and again, going on those coffee dates, going to conferences, going to random networking events, saying yes to going on dates, saying yes to just things that felt crazy, projects that felt crazy, just things that I couldn't see how they would benefit me right away. By saying yes, I was able to really build the career and the business that I have now because of all of those relationships that I was able to nurture and develop, all of those experiences that I was able to live through, all of those learning lessons that I was able to gather. So while we are definitely in a culture right now of me, right? It's a me season. I also really believe that the more that we say yes to things that we cannot see how they will immediately benefit us, the more that we have a servant's heart and that we come from a posture of gratitude and from a posture of service, the more that we are served, the more that we're able to attain, the more that we're able to grow. Now, don't be out here saying, Emily told me to go get taken advantage of, because you got to use discernment now. Like, don't be stupid either. If they're like, hey, come work for 5 months for free, I'm not saying that, right? But I'm saying, what would it look like if you answered that DM from that guy, right, who's been in there in your photos and calling you beautiful every morning, right? What would it be like if you took that girl up, who can't do anything for you, who maybe is in college or maybe is a starting entrepreneur? What would it look like if you took her up on the offer of, going for a coffee date or having a 30-minute chat? Would it look like if you took on a project that was a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but you knew that you could do the job, right? What if you didn't let imposter syndrome stop you? What if you said yes to the trip? What if you said yes to the dinner? What if you said yes to the brunch? What if you said yes to the gym? What if you said yes? What would happen if you said yes? What kind of life would you live? What kind of steps, what kind of things would be revealed for you because you are constantly in a state of receiving and in a state of taking action instead of being in a state of chaos and in a state of guarding yourself and protecting yourself? Just something to think about. And that's all I have for you today. I think we have talked a ton. I hope that story time was entertaining and that this lesson of surrender really hits home for you as you enter into 2022. That you are able to live in the present moment, that you're able to say yes more, that you're able to really understand what is happening for you and not to you, and choose to live a life that feels good because you deserve it. I'll see you guys on the next one.
I'm so grateful that you hung out with me today. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss an episode, and do me a huge favor. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. I want to hear from you. And if you're ready to start thinking differently, head over to sanityandsuccess.com for a free mindset challenge.